You never forget the moment they try to erase you, especially when they think you won't fight back. My name is Dana Loring. For the past 13 years, I had been the backbone of operations at Vertex Dynamics, one of Boston's most elite tech consultancies. I had rebuilt broken systems, survived 3 rounds of layoffs, and quietly handled 2 crises that could have made headlines. But none of that mattered anymore. Because at exactly 9:47 on a rainy Tuesday morning, my manager Brent Callahan summoned me to his glass-walled office, a place too pristine for the kind of betrayal I was about to endure. "Come in, Dana." "Shut the door," Brent said with that artificial smile he wore when he was about to ruin someone's life. He gestured to the sleek leather chair in front of his desk. I sat calm, despite the chill running down my spine. "We're heading in a new direction," he began, glancing at a corporate script on his tablet. "One that focuses on fresh ideas. Fresh talent. People who understand where the industry is headed. You've done great work here, but it's time to make room for someone younger. We're bringing in a new graduate from MIT. You'll be training her. And then moving on." I stared at him for a beat too long. He shifted in his seat, expecting outrage, tears, or begging. But I offered none of those things. "I see," I said simply. "Will this be effective immediately?" He blinked. "A transition over the next few weeks. But yes, you'll step aside." "Officially?" I nodded. "And the next board meeting, it's still set for Thursday afternoon, right?" Brent tilted his head. "That's not relevant to you anymore, Dana." "Just confirming," I replied smoothly. "Calendar housekeeping." He leaned back, confused. "HR will reach out regarding your severance package. I'll expect your full cooperation in onboarding Haley." Of course, I smiled. Always happy to support the next generation. He didn't see the glint in my eye. Didn't know that 3 weeks ago, I had sat across from Nina Wakefield, the outgoing CEO of Vertex Dynamics, not in this sterile office, but in the back room of a bookstore cafe overlooking the Charles River. Nina had slid a document across the table to me. "I'm retiring, and I want you to succeed me. Quietly for now. The board is watching, Brent. But I'm betting on you. You've always known how to lead without shouting." I had signed the contract that morning. Brent thought he was replacing me. In reality, I'd be the one approving or rejecting his department's future by the end of the week. He didn't know that I had already attended 3 private strategy sessions with the board, reviewed every confidential report, and helped draft the operational overhaul plan. While he was plotting my exit, I was being groomed to inherit the company. As I left Brent's office, I passed by Marcus Chen, my closest colleague. His eyebrows rose in silent question. "Just Friday politics," I whispered with a tight smile. "Don't let him get to you," Marcus replied. "He's always had a thing about cutting down strong women." I chuckled softly. "We'll see how strong he feels after Thursday." That evening, I received a message from Nina. "Boardroom A Thursday. You'll enter through the executive hall. Be ready." I locked my phone and returned to finishing my final report, the one Brent thought was my farewell project. What it really was, though, was the master file that outlined exactly how I planned to restructure Vertex Dynamics when I stepped in as interim CEO. It included Brent's performance metrics, his flawed talent plan, and the data he had accidentally excluded from his projections. By the next morning, a sad little email was circulated. "Join us this Friday in the lounge to wish Dana Loring farewell. Coffee and cupcakes will be served. Cheap sugar and uncomfortable smiles." Perfect. The week moved like molasses. I trained Haley, the new recruit, with grace and care. She was bright, polite, and dangerously unaware that she had been inserted into someone else's war. I gave her notes, advice, templates, and told her things Brent never had the patience to teach. "I really appreciate this," she said on Wednesday, sincere and hopeful. "They told me you'd be bitter about me coming in." I smiled. "Oh no, Haley. I'm just getting started." On Thursday morning, Brent walked past my desk with a spring in his step. "Big day," he said. "Board meeting. Major announcements. Time for the company to evolve." "Yes," I replied, standing to stretch. "Evolution is overdue." At 1:45 sharp, I entered through the executive hall, the polished floor beneath my heels gleaming like a promise. Nina met me at the entrance to Boardroom A. "You ready to unseat a man who thinks the crown belongs to him?" she asked. I'm not unseating him, I said. He never had the throne. Spoken like a true CEO, she said, opening the door. 12 board members turned as I entered. Smiles. Nods. One or two standing in greeting. I took the seat beside Gregory Weller, the board chairman, who gave me a firm handshake. The company's been long overdue for a different kind of leader, he said quietly. Make it count. As I opened my portfolio, the door to the main boardroom swung open. Brent Callahan strode in, projection folder under his arm, confidence radiating from every smug pore. Then he saw me. He froze. The boardroom was silent. The game had officially begun. To be continued. Brent Callahan had always believed in dominance by performance. He presented numbers like they were divine truth, spoke over others like their voices were a courtesy, not a necessity, and smiled like he already owned the room. But now, standing at the edge of boardroom A, folder in hand, his smile collapsed like wet cardboard. Dana, he muttered, stepping forward. I didn't realize. Let's begin, Nina Wakefield interrupted, her voice slicing cleanly through the tension. Seats, please. We have major business to discuss. Brent hesitated, glancing around for confirmation. None came. Even Gregory Weller didn't offer him a nod. Wordlessly, Brent walked around the table and sat opposite me, shoulders stiff, folder unopened. As many of you know, Nina continued, standing at the head of the table, Vertex Dynamics is undergoing a significant leadership transition. This will not be about disruption. It will be about direction, about trust, history, and what this company needs to compete globally without discarding its soul. She paused, then looked directly at me. 3 weeks ago, I informed the board of my retirement. After extensive discussions, we agreed that the future of Vertex should be entrusted to someone who understands both the engine and the driver's seat. Someone who has worked through fire and frost. Someone who sees people before titles. She turned to the board. It is my honor to formally introduce your new Chief Executive Officer, Dana Loring. A wave of sound swept through the room. Applause. Affirming nods. 2 board members even stood, clapping slowly with knowing looks. Brent's lips parted slightly, like he was about to speak, but no words came. I glanced at him only once, not with triumph, but with precision. Thank you, I said, rising slowly. I have spent 13 years inside this company's systems, its code, its contracts, and most importantly, its people. I'm not here to erase the past. I'm here to remove what no longer serves our future. Brent finally found his voice. This is highly irregular. I wasn't informed. Because you weren't selected, Gregory Weller said calmly. This was a confidential board appointment. Strategic discretion was necessary. But I submitted a proposal, Brent continued, flustered. A full reorganization plan. New roles. Talent reshuffling. We received it, I said, sitting again and opening my own folder. And I reviewed every page, including your proposal to remove department heads over age 50 and replace them with contract-based junior staff. A cost-saving measure, you claimed. One that would also eliminate all female VPs within 2 quarters. He froze. Gregory leaned forward. Was that your intent, Brent? I believe the data supported fresh perspectives. Data does not justify discrimination, I replied, and certainly not the erasure of institutional memory. Nina added, Dana has submitted a counterproposal, one that modernizes without marginalizing. I tapped a document in front of me. It's called the Innovation and Legacy Fellowship, a cross-generational program pairing senior experts with junior talent. Knowledge is transferred. Innovation is inspired. No one is discarded. Silence followed, the kind that made people sit straighter. Brent cleared his throat. I see. Well, I suppose I should withdraw my proposal. That won't be necessary, I said. The board has already rejected it. Gregory stood. Now, unless there are objections, we will proceed with the new CEO's operational rollout plan. There were none. Brent looked away. A man dismantled in public by nothing more than facts and quiet conviction. For the next 90 minutes, I presented my vision, a transparent, agile, human-centric Vertex. I outlined structural bottlenecks, solution frameworks, and leadership realignments that emphasized accountability, including reassessing the performance metrics of every department head. Brent scribbled notes. Or maybe just pretended to. When the meeting adjourned, most board members approached to shake my hand, some with real admiration. Nina gave my shoulder a final squeeze before stepping out, officially ending her tenure. Brent lingered until the room cleared. "I should have known," he muttered. "I gave you every chance to see it," I replied. "But you were too busy planning my exit to notice your own. You won't keep everyone on your side." "I don't need to," I said. "I just need the right ones." He stared at me. "So what happens now?" "Now." I smiled. "You return to your department. Prepare your quarterly metrics. You still report to this office, unless you'd prefer to discuss reassignment." He bristled. "I built this division. Then prove it still deserves you." He stormed out, dignity in shreds. I walked to the tall glass windows at the end of the executive floor. Boston's skyline shimmered in the gray light. A city built on resilience. So was I. By the time I reached my new office, corner suite, overlooking the river, I found a welcome card from the staff. No names, just one sentence: "It's about time." The hallway outside my door was quiet. But the battle had only begun. To be continued. Friday morning arrived with the air of staged celebration. The lounge on the third floor had been decorated with half-hearted effort, a faded "Good Luck Dana" banner pinned above a folding table, alongside a tray of soggy muffins and a coffee urn that gurgled more than it brewed. It was the kind of send-off no one really planned, just arranged by HR out of habit. A quiet burial for a career they believed had expired. I stepped into the room wearing a navy blue blazer over a crisp blouse, the same outfit I had worn when the CEO offer was first made to me. It was a small signal to myself that no matter how they dressed the narrative, I was not leaving. I was ascending. "Dana." Marcus Chen greeted me with his usual warmth, handing me a paper cup of coffee. "You sure you want to go through with this? There's still time to sneak out the back." I laughed softly. Let them believe what they need to. For now, most of my department filed in slowly, wearing sympathetic smiles or avoiding eye contact entirely. Brent entered 10 minutes late, clapped twice for effect, and stood next to me with a paper in hand, likely a pre-written tribute to my loyal years of service. "Everyone," he began with theatrical earnestness, "we're gathered here to wish Dana the best as she moves on to new opportunities." I turned my head slightly to glance at him, wondering if even he believed the nonsense he was spinning. "Dana's been a pillar of consistency here at Vertex," Brent continued, reading carefully. "And though change can be difficult, we embrace growth and new beginnings." That last phrase wasn't about me. It was about Haley Tran, the young graduate now watching from the edge of the room, nervously sipping from a cup too big for her small hands. She hadn't said much all week, but I could see the internal war waging behind her eyes. She knew she was caught in something deeper than she'd been told. After a round of obligatory applause, Brent gestured to the table. "Please enjoy some treats and take a moment to say goodbye." I stepped away before he could add more, gravitating toward the window where the autumn light filtered through, coloring the carpet with gold. "Is it true?" Marcus asked beside me, voice low. I raised an eyebrow. "What do you think is true?" "That this is just a detour. That you're not really leaving." I smiled slightly. "Ask me again on Monday." He grinned. The message understood. As people came to wish me farewell, I nodded graciously, listening to empty compliments and nostalgic anecdotes. But the entire scene was theater. Every handshake, every cupcake, every awkward smile, performed under the illusion that Dana Loring was stepping away. At exactly 10:30, my phone buzzed. A text from Haley. "Can we talk privately?" I'm a bit confused. I led her to an empty conference room down the hall. "I just don't get it," she said. "You've been helping me all week. Teaching me. And yet everyone talks like you've been replaced." I took a deep breath. "You're here under false assumptions, Haley. But that's not your fault." She looked down. "I didn't mean to take anyone's job." "You didn't. You were used as a tool in someone else's plan. But you're not disposable. You're smart. You deserve better than to be someone's shortcut to a younger workforce." Her eyes widened. "So, what happens to me now?" I'll let you know Monday, I said, standing. For now, enjoy the muffins. Later that afternoon, the company-wide meeting commenced in the main auditorium. Every seat was filled. Project managers, analysts, assistants, people from all levels packed into rows, whispering rumors. No one knew exactly what the announcement was about, only that it had come from Nina herself. And when Nina made noise, it usually meant someone's head was about to roll. I waited backstage with the rest of the executive team, now technically my peers. Nina stood beside me, adjusting her jacket with calm precision. Nervous? She asked. No, I replied truthfully. More ready than I've ever been. She smiled. Good. Because this company needs a storm. A smart one. And you're it. At exactly 3 o'clock, Nina took the stage to thunderous applause. She thanked the staff, praised recent achievements, and spoke about Vertex's future with conviction only someone stepping down could wield. Then she paused. I am proud to introduce the next chapter of Vertex leadership, she said. This company deserves someone who has grown with its roots and can now guide its growth. Someone who understands our systems and our soul. Please welcome your new Chief Executive Officer, Dana Loring. The silence lasted only a second before it was swallowed by applause. Then cheers. Then standing ovations from those who had seen me work in the trenches, fix what others had broken, stay late without being asked. Brent, seated in the second row, clapped with mechanical obligation. Haley blinked in astonishment. I walked on stage without hesitation. This was no longer a surprise. It was my stage. Thank you, I began, scanning the sea of faces. Thank you for the years of collaboration, the trust you've given me in quiet ways, and the space you allowed for problems to be solved without flash or noise. Today, I'm not beginning something new. I'm simply continuing what I've always done, but now with the authority to do it right. The crowd hushed as I continued. We will modernize. We will innovate. But we will not erase the wisdom that brought us this far. Everyone in this room matters, not because of your age or your title, but because of what you bring to the table. When I stepped off stage, the lines to greet me were long. Haley approached last. You knew all along, she asked. I did. And Brent. I looked at her. Will be reassigned. Quietly. The next chapter for Vertex had just begun. But it wouldn't be written in spreadsheets or exit interviews. It would be written in loyalty, grit, and sharp intelligence. And I had a pen in my hand. To be continued. Monday morning began like any other, except everything had changed. I arrived 15 minutes earlier than usual, not out of obligation but out of choice. The elevator to the executive floor responded faster than the ones below, a small, strange luxury I hadn't noticed before. As the doors opened, the hallway was quiet, carpets untouched, the city glowing through full-length windows. For the first time in 13 years, I walked into an office with my name on the door. Dana Loring, Chief Executive Officer. The glass was freshly cleaned, the furniture modern and minimal. And on the desk sat a single welcome envelope signed by the executive staff, to the woman who never needed a title to lead. I placed it next to my jade desk plant, the same one I had kept since my first cubicle. The contrast was poetic. Within 20 minutes, the calls began. Legal, finance, human resources. Each department requesting alignment meetings for the week. The company hadn't stopped to breathe, and I didn't plan to let it. I called in my assistant, a new hire named Meredith, who looked at me with a mixture of fear and awe. We're doing things differently now, I told her gently. No filters. No layers of red tape. Everyone should feel like they can knock on this door. Is that clear? She nodded quickly. Understood. By mid-morning, I sat down with our head of operations, our supply chain director, and the head of product innovation. The agenda was the same for each: current status, lingering inefficiencies, and one simple question: if no one was watching, what would you fix first? Their answers were raw. Bottlenecks, favoritism, outdated approval hierarchies. The kind of frustrations no one dared speak when the old system favored a few loud voices. It was exactly what I needed. Later that afternoon, I summoned Brent to my office. He entered with a tight expression and a manila folder clutched to his chest. You asked to see me, he said stiffly. Close the door, I said. My voice was calm. The kind of calm that didn't leave space for misunderstanding. He obeyed. I've reviewed your division's quarterly performance along with your staffing decisions, I began. There's a discrepancy between the values you present and the reality I've inherited. He opened his mouth to defend himself, but I raised a hand. You hired 5 junior analysts last quarter. 4 of them came from the same networking circle. Not one had the required certifications. Meanwhile, 2 senior staffers, both women over 50, were pushed into early retirement packages without full board review. Brent's jaw flexed. Those decisions were strategic. We were under pressure to reduce budget. So your strategy was to remove the most experienced voices and replace them with cheaper labor? I thought that's what the company wanted, he snapped. Nina never stopped me. Nina isn't here anymore, I replied coolly. And even if she were, that excuse wouldn't stand. A long silence stretched. You've requested a transfer to our Chicago office, I said next, referencing the internal form he'd submitted late Friday night. He nodded once. Yes. I believe it's the best move for everyone. For once, I said, I agree with you. His eyes searched mine for resentment, revenge, or even triumph. But there was none. Only professional closure. You'll finish this week here. Final reports. Transition notes. And you'll have a formal handoff meeting with your replacement. Replacement? He asked, startled. Yes, I said, folding my hands on the desk. Tasha Reed. She was overlooked last year after presenting the best proposal for the Weston project. That won't happen again. Brent's shoulders sagged. I see. As he stood, I added, Brent, you're not being punished. You're being redirected. Take that however you wish. But make no mistake, we're building something here that values longevity as much as innovation. He nodded once more and left the room. That night, I walked through the building alone. No staff. No chatter. Just fluorescent light and humming machinery. I passed the design floor where I'd once worked side by side with junior engineers, guiding their hands as we solved problems no textbook could. I paused at the wall of patents, 8 of which bore my name, though no one had ever held a ceremony. The company had treated me like wallpaper for a decade. Functional. Familiar. Quiet. But now, the paint had cracked. And underneath it, I was steel. When I returned to my office, Meredith had left a note. Haley Tran is waiting to see you at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Good. It was time she understood the truth of her role and what it could become. To be continued. At exactly 9 o'clock the next morning, there was a soft knock on the glass door of my office. Come in, I said, already knowing who it was. Haley Tran stepped inside, her shoulders drawn slightly inward, eyes wide but steady. She wore the same navy slacks and white blouse she'd worn on her first day, but this time, without the faint air of nervous excitement. What replaced it was uncertainty, and a fragile hope that whatever happened next wouldn't crush her. You asked to see me, she said, standing with her arms close to her sides. Yes, I gestured to the chair across from me. Please sit down. She did, carefully. I wanted to talk to you, I began, not as your former trainer or someone you replaced, but as your CEO. Her lips parted. You don't have to explain anything, I said. You weren't responsible for how you got here. That was someone else's chess move. What matters now is what you choose to do, knowing the full picture. She nodded slowly. You were brought into this company under the impression that you were taking over my position. But that position no longer exists. And not because of you. Her breath caught slightly. I didn't ask for any of this. I know, I replied. And that's why I didn't hold back when I trained you. She looked down at her hands. I thought you were being kind. But now I realize you were giving me the tools to survive whatever this company threw at me. Exactly, I said. Because here's the truth, Haley, talent is only part of the job. The rest is knowing how to navigate a system that wasn't built for fairness. She looked up again. So, what happens to me now? You stay, I said. But not in the role Brent created for you. That position was a placeholder, not a real investment in your growth. I'm moving you into our Junior Strategy Fellowship. It's a new development track I've established for high-potential hires. You'll rotate across departments, shadow real leaders, and learn the full system, not just the polished parts. Her face shifted, caught between relief and disbelief. You're not punishing me? I smiled. Why would I punish someone for being placed in a position they didn't ask for? You've shown poise, curiosity, and integrity. You asked hard questions when most people stay quiet. That's not a liability. That's leadership and training. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. You'll report to Tasha Reed, I continued. She'll oversee your progress. And at the end of the year, you'll be eligible for internal placement in the team of your choice. Not Brent's choice. Yours. Haley stood, slowly. Thank you, Ms. Loring. Call me Dana, I replied. Everyone else does now. After she left, I sat in silence for a moment. The office was still, sunlight pouring across my desk. I had just corrected the first of many quiet injustices. It wouldn't be the last. By mid-afternoon, Tasha arrived for her onboarding session. She stepped into the office with a confidence that radiated experience, not arrogance. Her presence was grounded, professional, no nonsense. The kind of energy I wanted surrounding this new era. It's about time, she said after we hugged. I've been fighting ghosts in this company for years. You'll be fighting systems now, I told her. But at least you won't be alone. We reviewed Brent's departmental transition plan. As expected, it was more about covering his tracks than empowering his team. Tasha made quick work of it, redlining inefficiencies with a red pen like a surgeon marking incisions. I'll clean this up, she said. Quietly. And thoroughly. That's why I chose you. As the sun began to lower outside the windows, I walked down to the first floor alone. The engineering bullpen, once my battlefield, buzzed with late-day fatigue. Some of the same faces glanced up as I passed. Not with fear, not with resentment, but with something new. Recognition. I paused by the old coffee station where Brent used to hold impromptu updates, more theater than substance. A junior engineer offered a hesitant wave. I waved back. Anything broken down here? I asked playfully. Only the vending machine, someone muttered. Good, I smiled. I thought it was the network again. Laughter. Just a little. But it was real. I didn't need fanfare to lead. I needed to be present. Visible. Consistent. By the time I returned to the executive floor, I found a sealed envelope on my desk. No sender name. Just my own name written in precise, narrow script. Inside was a single page. Dana, I fought hard to stay relevant in a system I didn't understand. You were never the enemy. Only the reminder that I stopped listening. I hope your leadership heals what I broke. It was unsigned. But I didn't need a name. Some apologies don't arrive in speeches. They arrive in honesty. To be continued. Wednesday morning started with a whisper that turned into a murmur by noon. An internal audit had been launched, quietly, strategically, and without the usual breadcrumb trail of emails or memos. I had instructed compliance and finance to begin a full departmental review, starting with data access logs, vendor contract histories, and expense reports from the last 18 months. Not because I was looking for vengeance. Because I had a hunch. There were gaps Brent never bothered to close. Transactions that never added up. And people whose names always appeared in the background of decisions without accountability. Tasha Reed had caught it first, buried in a budget spreadsheet. These line items don't match the supplier database, she said, pushing her glasses up as she tapped the screen. Someone was either sloppy or strategic. We dug deeper. Unusual bonuses. Duplicate contractor names. Training programs paid out but never held. I looped in our forensic accountant, a calm, observant woman named Priya who had worked in silence for years, mostly unacknowledged by the old regime. It's not theft, Priya said after reviewing the files. It's manipulation. Redirected resources disguised as development initiatives. I nodded. And all of it under Brent's department. She looked at me. But he wasn't working alone. By Thursday, we had compiled a dossier, neatly arranged, heavily annotated, timestamped and indexed. Names appeared that surprised no one. A middle manager with a long reputation for favoritism. A procurement head who seemed to answer to Brent, not the company. Even an external consultant who had been billing for ghost hours on a project that had been shelved months ago. We have enough to launch internal proceedings, Priya said. But we'll need your direction. Prepare for the board, I said. They'll receive it confidentially at the next session. That night, I stared at the city from my office windows, the skyline humming with quiet defiance. I hadn't wanted to come into this role and open wounds. But a festering infection doesn't heal if you just ignore it. You have to clean it and face what spills out. The next morning, Gregory Weller arrived at my office unannounced. "I received your summary," he said, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. "It's thorough. It's necessary," I replied. He nodded, sinking into the seat across from my desk. I always knew Brent was ambitious. I just didn't realize how far his ambition had wandered. I said nothing. I didn't need to. Gregory tapped the folder. "What's your goal with this? Termination? Prosecution?" "My goal is integrity," I said. "For this company to stop rewarding shortcuts dressed as innovation. For people to know that standards apply, no matter where your office is located." Gregory studied me for a moment, then smiled faintly. "You're not what we expected. You're what we needed." That afternoon, the whispers grew louder. Not about me. About what was coming. One department head sent a request for an emergency meeting. Another suddenly canceled a 3-day trip and returned to headquarters. People were sensing a shift, but they didn't yet know how deep the roots had grown, or how many were about to be pulled. By 5 o'clock, I had a meeting with HR. We prepared a phased intervention strategy. Not mass firings. No spectacle. Just a clean reset, quiet accountability, respectful exits, and a reshaped leadership culture built around transparency. Meredith entered with a file marked urgent. "Message from our client director in Singapore," she said. "They're hearing things, concerns about instability here." I scanned the message and responded quickly. "Let's arrange a global leadership call. Monday morning. I'll address every concern myself." "Yes, ma'am," she said, pausing. "There's something else." She handed me a smaller envelope. "Left anonymously on your desk." I opened it. One sentence, printed in clean courier font. "There's more. You're looking in the right place. Don't stop." No name. No signature. But someone inside was still watching. Still hoping. That was enough. To be continued. Monday arrived with a storm hovering over Boston, both outside and within. Rain lashed against the executive windows like a warning. But I had no intention of backing down. At 8:45 sharp, I stepped into the executive video conference suite. The global leadership team had already started logging in. From Berlin to Jakarta, London to Sao Paulo, 34 tiles flickered to life, each one representing a branch, a region, a market. "Good morning, everyone," I said once the last indicator turned green. "I know rumors have been circulating. Let me assure you, this call is not about damage control. It's about alignment." My voice was steady, confident, without performance. "Vertex Dynamics is undergoing internal restructuring," I continued. "Not to downsize, but to repair. In recent years, we've made efficiency our mantra. But somewhere along the way, we sacrificed integrity, process, and people. That ends now." I let the silence settle before continuing. "We've discovered patterns of misappropriated resources and unethical contract relationships inside our North America division. These findings are being addressed directly. No finger-pointing. No distractions. Just resolution. Quiet, legal, and final." There was movement on the screen tiles, surprise, nods, notes being taken. "And to our global partners," I said, scanning their digital faces, "let me make this clear. This cleanup is not a sign of instability. It's a return to the culture we were founded on, operational excellence and ethical growth. You will continue to receive uninterrupted support. In fact, you may see improvements in efficiency, transparency, and service by the next quarter." Someone unmuted, Anton from Berlin. He leaned forward. "This is the first time we've had this level of direct briefing. It's refreshing." "Expect it regularly," I replied. "Do we need to prepare our teams for similar audits?" asked Layla from Dubai. "No," I said. "Unless they've been hiding something." Laughter rippled across a few tiles. Tension broke. The energy shifted. "We trust your leadership," said Naveen from Singapore. "We've been waiting for someone who looks inward before blaming outward." After the call ended, I sat for a long moment in the silent room, watching the last few names disappear from the screen. I had done it. Not with power plays or polished lies, but with clarity, with truth. Back at my desk, I reviewed the next phase of our restructuring timeline. Tasha had begun internal interviews with Brent's former staff. Haley had submitted her first rotation report, concise, thoughtful, already showing signs of growth. And the audit? It had widened. 3 more departments had self-reported irregularities after the Friday announcement. Not out of fear, but because they finally believed someone would listen. By Tuesday, the board received a final version of the audit report. A recommendation from compliance was attached: 6 terminations, 2 legal reviews, and 4 voluntary exits. Gregory Weller called me that afternoon. "Impressive work," he said. "The board is aligned with your decisions." "Then we proceed," I said. "There's just one concern," he added. "The press may start sniffing around. They'll ask why these changes happened so suddenly." I leaned back. "Let them ask. The story will be simple. The company evolved. And you? I'm just the one who stopped pretending it didn't need to." That evening, I visited the company archives, a strange tradition I had developed in the last few weeks. Something about standing among the framed patents, faded photographs, and yellowing blueprints grounded me. In the corner was a display no one noticed anymore. A glass case containing a first-generation Vertex server panel, the one the founders built in a garage 30 years ago. Below it, a brass plaque read, "Built to last. Meant to adapt." A whisper of a smile tugged at my lips. That was the difference now. This company would no longer forget where it came from. It would finally honor how far it could go. To be continued. It was Thursday afternoon when I received an unexpected appointment request. "Name?" Meredith asked, reading it aloud from her screen. "Says his name is Raymond Kessler. No title listed. No notes. Just a handwritten card dropped at reception asking to see you directly." Raymond Kessler. The name hit me like a chord struck long after the music had stopped. He had been one of Vertex's earliest executive engineers. My first mentor. The man who taught me how to see problems before they erupted, and how to remain calm when they did. He had left the company nearly a decade ago, pushed into early retirement during the last executive reshuffle. No fanfare. No farewell. "Let him in," I said, standing instinctively. Moments later, the elevator chimed. I watched as Raymond stepped into the hallway, older now, slower, but with the same thoughtful eyes that always saw more than they let on. He wore a simple gray overcoat and held a small package wrapped in paper. "Dana," he said, smiling gently. "I wasn't sure you'd remember me." "I never forgot," I said, taking his hand. "Please come in." We sat in the corner of my office, near the window that framed the city in layers of steel and sky. "I've been following what's happening," he said. "Didn't think I'd ever see someone turn this place right side up again." "I didn't plan to come in swinging," I admitted. "But once I saw the foundation, I realized it needed a new frame entirely." He nodded. "You were always good at seeing what wasn't obvious. That's why I taught you everything I knew." "I remember," I said quietly. "Especially what you said the day they boxed up your office." "Don't fight the system from the hallway," he recited. "Get into the room, then rearrange the furniture." We both chuckled. He handed me the package. This belonged to Meryl. Meryl Carmichael, the first woman engineer at Vertex. A legend, quietly erased by time. I opened the package slowly. Inside was a leather-bound notebook, aged but preserved. The cover bore Meryl's initials and, inside, blueprints, diagrams, personal notes, and sketches that spanned decades. "She kept everything," Raymond said. "Not because she needed proof, but because she believed someone someday would care enough to finish what she started." I turned the pages in awe. Meryl had documented entire system designs that predated Vertex's most successful patents. It was clear her contributions had gone far beyond what the company ever acknowledged. "I don't want her forgotten," I whispered. "Then don't let her be," he said simply. "You're in the room now. Move the furniture." We sat in silence for a while, the city humming beneath us. After Raymond left, I called Tasha. "We're starting a legacy archive," I told her. "Real history. Real names. No erasure." I want a full historical audit of patents, projects, and credits, especially from the company's first 20 years. Tasha didn't hesitate. We'll make it happen. Later that evening, I scanned one of Merrill's earliest diagrams. A revolutionary internal cooling system for server efficiency, years ahead of its time. Never credited. Never commercialized. The company had buried its roots to chase rapid growth. Now it would grow again, but this time with roots intact. At 9 p.m., as I prepared to leave, I looked out across the city once more. Behind the lights and towers were people, young and old, new and forgotten, whose efforts had built this company's walls. From now on, no one would be erased. No one would be silenced by early exits or quiet terminations. Not if I had anything to say about it. And I had everything to say. To be continued. The following week, something unexpected happened. A chair appeared in the executive lobby, an old high-backed wooden seat with carved arms and scuff marks on its legs. It had no tag, no explanation. No one had placed it there. No one claimed responsibility. But it sat across from the main elevator, directly facing the portraits of the company's past CEOs. At first, people ignored it. Then they began walking around it. Then they began whispering. The chair became a symbol. No one dared sit in it. It was strange, even poetic, like the company itself was sending a message. This is where the unseen once sat. Don't forget them again. I asked facilities if anyone had moved furniture recently. They hadn't. I checked security footage. Nothing. The chair had simply appeared. I didn't need an answer. I already knew what it meant. That same day, Haley stopped by my office with a nervous look. I need to show you something, she said, handing me her tablet. On the screen was a video. A clip from 2 years ago, recorded during a leadership retreat. It showed Brent standing in front of a whiteboard, drawing an org chart. This is how we phase out the legacy, he said. Older staff can't keep up. We present it as mentorship, but it's replacement. Quiet and gradual. No headlines. Around him, laughter. Approval. Casual agreement. Haley looked horrified. This was buried in an old shared drive. I found it while preparing for the strategy rotation. I watched the clip twice. Thank you, I said. You did the right thing. We need to be better than this, she whispered. We will, I promised. That evening, I brought the video to the board. The footage played in full. No one spoke during the 2-minute clip. When it ended, the silence was sharp. This is not just about Brent, I said. It's about the culture that allowed this thinking to thrive. We cannot fix systems if we refuse to admit how deep they rot. Gregory Weller sat forward. What's your recommendation? A formal policy, I said. Legacy protection. A commitment to documenting, crediting, and preserving contributions of employees regardless of age or tenure. No more silent exits. No more vanishing mentors. Everyone leaves a mark, and that mark will be honored. The board voted unanimously in favor. By the next day, every department received the memo. The legacy protection policy went into immediate effect. Feedback was overwhelming. Dozens of employees submitted letters, files, even notebooks, artifacts of work done under shadows now stepping into the light. The company buzzed with new energy, not because of a product, but because of a principle. At lunch, I visited the executive lobby. The chair was still there, untouched, waiting. I stood in front of it for a long time. Then slowly I sat, not to claim power, but to acknowledge the ones who came before me. The ones who held everything together until someone could finally say, I see you. And I did. Behind me, I heard quiet footsteps. It was Meredith. There's a guest waiting in your office, she said softly. She wouldn't give a name. Only said she used to work here a long time ago. I stood. Let her in, I said. To be continued. She entered without hesitation. A woman in her late 60s, tall and slender, with gray-streaked hair pulled into a low twist. She wore a navy blue blouse and loose linen trousers. Her stride was purposeful, her gaze unwavering. I'm looking for Dana Hallberg, she said. That's me, I replied, stepping forward. And you are? Carmen Doyle, she said. I was one of the engineers on Project Delta. 1997 to 2003. We built the core infrastructure for Vertex's server redundancy systems. I left before they went public. My throat caught. Carmen, I breathed. Your name is on the backup blueprints, but the files always listed your title as temporary contractor. She smiled, bittersweet. That was intentional, she said. Back then, women who stayed too long got noticed and pushed out. I chose invisibility over extinction. But I heard you're building an archive. I said. And I want your story in it. She sat down slowly. For years, I thought maybe I imagined my own impact. That maybe I was just helping other people shine. But then I saw the announcement about legacy protection. And I realized something. Maybe it's not too late to be remembered after all. I leaned forward. You were never forgotten. Just hidden. We're changing that. Carmen reached into her bag and pulled out a stack of old floppy disks and faded schematics. I felt reverent holding them, like I was cradling history itself. We spent hours talking. Names, timelines, forgotten systems, all pouring back into light. She laughed once when I showed her the new infrastructure design. Still building off our bones, she joked. When she left, we embraced like old comrades who had never met but fought the same war. That evening, I stood before the Vertex team. Over 300 employees gathered for the quarterly town hall. For the first time, I wasn't there to announce numbers or roadmaps. I want to share a name, I said, voice steady. Carmen Doyle. She built the spine of the systems we use today. You won't find her face on any walls or her name on any patents. But her work is in every server, every signal. She came back today, and she reminded us, legacy doesn't disappear. It waits. The auditorium was silent. Then applause. Long and rising. Some people stood. Others cried. No one looked away. After the applause faded, I took a breath. This is just the beginning. We're building something new here. Not just tech, but memory. Justice. A culture where no one has to vanish in order to survive. In the lobby later that night, the chair was gone. In its place stood a plaque. To the builders we never saw, your echo remains. The lights dimmed behind me. I looked around one last time before heading home. I had walked into this company as a woman they underestimated. A placeholder. A problem. Now, I stood at the helm of something alive. Not because I fought the system alone, but because I listened to the ones whose stories still lived beneath the silence. Their voices, once erased, now formed the rhythm of everything we would become, and their echo stayed.